So now I'm going to show you how to assemble the fuel pump mounting assembly for the wings. Before we get into that, I'll show you quickly the tools that you're going to need. Basic hand tools required here. Number 2 Phillips screwdriver, a socket or rather a ratchet with sockets or wrenches. You're going to need a 1/4 inch, a 5/16, and a 3/8. So you can see we've got several metal and plastic pieces here. The metal pieces, quick notes on that. All of the appropriate holes that need countersinking will already be done. All you'll have to do is you'll have to attach these nut plates. We include the rivets for those as well. And then obviously assemble all the screws and all that. So we're going to get into that now. First thing I'm going to do, this is an intermediate plate. You can see we've got 3 countersunk holes on one side. This piece here is one of our retainer pieces. We're going to go on the side that's opposite of the countersink. And you can see that those 3 holes line up. And you know you've got it on the right side because this edge, which has a little bit of a taper to it, lines up with the rounded edge of the plate. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab a few of our number 6 screws. And I'm going to grab actually this more or less washer plate. And then we're going to grab our nylock. And I'm going to start all 3 of these. I'll get those snugged and then we'll move on to the next piece. Okay, we got this snugged up. With all of these, every nut is nylock. All you need to do is get it snug. They're not going to back off. And especially with number 6 screws, you have to be careful not to over torque them anyways to not break them. But even on the number 10s, you don't have to go crazy on torque. Okay, this rib insert is going to be the next piece that gets installed onto this plate that we already put that clamp piece in. And then the piece after that's going to be this insert here. The reason I'm showing both right now is because they have left and right marks on them, so you know which wing they go into. So same drill as this piece. We're going to go ahead and get our countersunk screws in, get it snugged down, and then we'll move on. The only difference here is we don't have a washer plate. This is just going to get directly screwed down. We do have washers for these nuts here though. Okay, so now we're done with this half of the clamshell plate, and I didn't mention this before, but we call them the clamshell plates because they go together like this. Now we're going to move on to this half. Real quick, we're going to get to our first difference between transfer pump or not. The first difference is that if you're going to have a transfer pump, it's going to be mounted to this side of this plate, and this same bracket that I put over here is now going to have to get installed over here through those countersunk holes. So that's going to be your first step on this plate if you have one. This one's not getting one, so we're going to move on from that. The first thing that this side is going to get in our case is this insert piece. So you can see this insert piece has 3 holes that line up. However, only 2 of them have countersinks. The 2 with the countersinks are the ones that are getting the screws for now. Now we're done with that half. Next thing we're going to do is get our pump mounted to the pump plate, and then we'll be ready to go ahead and start getting everything finally assembled here. So the pump and the plate, again, 2 countersunk holes. All you have to do with the pump here is you have to get the outlet side aligned with the back of the plate, and the outlet side has the pigtail on it. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to line up those holes, and the outlet side of the plate has the nut plate on it. So we'll line up these 2 holes. And simply repeat the same process we've been doing up to this point. Try to get, this has a little bit of an oval hole on each side. So get it so that the pump's not protruding over the edge of this plate, the flange there. Okay, pump's on the plate. Again, we actually have a flow indicator on there, but pigtail towards the back side of the plate, that's the outlet side, as noted by where the nut plate needs to get installed on this. Okay, the last thing to do before we move to the aircraft to install is we have to sort of loosely marry these clamshells together. So this is where this rear retainer piece is going to come in. So we're just going to lay that on there. We're going to push the clamshells together. And then we've got two different sizes of these number 8 bolts here. These are 1 inchers, these are 3/4. We're going to set the 1 inches aside. We're going to take two of the 3/4 inch ones, and we're just going to start these in the back. And now you can see this is, more or less hinged for the time being, and this is going to be how we get it installed into the wing rib, which we'll show you next. Now, that being said, for the moment, I'm going to finish the assembly on the bench so you can see how it goes together, and then we'll show you the installation on a wing. Okay, we're going to assume now that there is a wing rib in the middle of all this. So you've clamshelled around the rib. The next step is take this 1 inch bolt into this front hole here and get it snugged down. These are number 8 bolts, but they actually have 1/4 inch heads on them, so they're somewhat non-standard, just to keep that in mind. Let me go ahead and actually just get those cinched down a little bit so that they're out of the way. Because of course in the aircraft these are going to be all the way down. Okay, not tight, but that's okay just for demonstration for now. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is get the pump installed onto this. This pump has a flange that sticks out on it, and on this plate, or rather on this retainer piece, is a recess in there for that flange to go into. So we're just going to line up that flange and get it pushed in, and then the pump plate should sit perfectly down onto the rib plate here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our remaining 3/4 inch here. We're going to get that snugged down. And now we've got this Adele clamp, and we've got this fuel filter that came in the kit. So we're going to push the filter into the clamp. And we're going to install that in our remaining hole. Of course, this one will be a little bit challenging because you have to overcome the spring pressure of the clamp. So that's why we did the 1 inch on this, just to make it easier for you. One thing I did one step out of order that I'm going to show you now is this fitting, of course with some thread sealant, should already actually be installed into the inlet side of the pump. And one of these hoses should be installed onto that to make it easier to then install it onto the filter. So something like that. By at least having this installed ahead of time, you're going to make your life a lot easier because you're not going to be trying to work inside the wing over here. Next piece then, or one of the last pieces anyways, again, thread sealant. Get that installed, get it snug, and then this is going to be the outlet for your hose that comes off of the aircraft, or one of these fittings if you wanted to do it that way. And then finally, on the inlet side of things, we include these little hard lines. And all that you're doing with this, actually, first you're installing this 90-degree 6AN adapter. And then the hard line goes on that. And then the other end goes into the outlet on the fuel tank. Okay, now we're going to take everything that we just did here, move over to a wing that has the root exposed. So this is going to be particularly helpful for any of you that are still building your aircraft. We're going to show you how that gets installed on there. The steps are going to be much the same as doing it on an airplane that already has the wings attached, and it is possible. It's actually pretty easy to do, but just for demonstration, we're showing on the exposed wing. Okay, we're at the wing root of the left wing here, and I've got my pump removed from this assembly and all that, so I'm going to show you how this goes in. So this clamshell, that's going to be kind of how it looks going in there. If I separate the halves, you can see the insert pieces over there, and this is the outer insert, if you will, the outer shim, I suppose, there. So we're going to go ahead and push that in, and it will self-locate into this lightning hole on the rib. Okay, so I'm going to get this mostly snugged down here, but not all the way. Of course, we're open, so I'm just going to have a nice long extension to help me. if you're working in the wing root, you've only got, basically this much room, and so you're going to have to get in here with a smaller ratchet or an air ratchet or something to get that snug down. Okay, the front snug down. Again, this mount self-locates because of the fact that the lightning hole is somewhat triangular. So now we can just go ahead and get this backside snug down. Now that that's on, we'll get the pump assembly installed. Okay, so we're going to get this assembly with the pump installed now. Again, like I was showing you on the bench, it's helpful to have all of this pre-installed. Make sure that these fittings you're using fuel-resistant thread sealant on there because these are pipe threads. Torque your fittings down to 150 or between 150 and 190 inch-pounds, and then you'll be ready to get it installed. So we're just going to get that flange pushed into that recess. Make sure it's going to sit flat. Okay. Now I'm going to, there's one 3/4 inch bolt that's going to go in from behind, and then the 1-inch bolt is going to go through that Adele clamp into that hole there. So I'll get that done now. Okay, now we've got our short hardline piece, and that's going to be what goes into that 90-degree into the filter. So we'll get this on the wing first on the outlet. Now you can see ours has a little bit of a bend to it to bring it this way. So you're probably going to have to do the same to yours. Now we'll get everything started, and you can see that the height is just a little bit off on the filter. So what we can do to fix that is we can just simply loosen the Adele clamp, and we can just draw our filter down a little bit until it all matches. So there it is, installed in the wing. Last thing, of course, is make your electrical connection and make your connection to the line in the aircraft. One word of caution that I want to give you real quick is before you get this filter snugged down and you get this bottom feed line installed, if you're doing a transfer pump, get that in first because that goes in on the back side of this rib here. So your life will be a lot easier when this is out of your way trying to get that installed.